show you. I read that thing of my sister's out of one of those literature reviews, and they had about 4 or 5 pages, because we know Johnson, unless we're scholars, which I am not, largely by Boswell's Life of Johnson, of which I've got 23 versions, but there are hundreds over the years, right, in this thing. And Boswell himself, I'll tell you a little bit about him, but a young man who was looking for, wanted to be himself among the literati and among the intellectuals, a Scottish aristocrat, not quite nobleman, but his father was, like you'd say, the Supreme Court of Scotland, and they owned, they had a manor and all that. And so he eventually wrote, he was an obsessive diarist. Boswell's another story entirely, but he didn't know he existed unless he wrote every night over, page after page of what had happened to him during the day, what he thought, because that's kind of, unless he held up that mirror to himself, I think he didn't think he was there. He was a man you would have mixed feelings about. But he met Johnson when he was 23. So this is my first, see this? This is my life of Johnson, because I've given a lot of talks. Now I have to tell you, I stole this book. It's the only book I ever stole in my life. I was at UBC in grad school, and I was in the bookstore, which had no security. And I see this, and it just struck me, there's the life of Johnson. So I had a thick sweater, so I put it under the sweater and walked out, And then over the years, I began to collect books, and every time, particularly in the thesis time, when I was troubled, I would turn to this. I've never read it start to finish, but I read all of it, and parts of it many, many times, right? So that's what that was, and I will. But you can see that it has been treasured, but I write in it. Some of my other versions are, again, from the 1800s or so, and so, I don't write in them. Okay. Now, since we are, and I should also say, I'm fascinated by Johnson's writing and talking. It would have been very, very dense, and it's very complex. And he has whatever is called parallel structure, where he'll say nothing to hope or fear, then this and that, and there's these sort of, I don't know, because I'm not an English scholar, but it's very hard to read, but I find it is easier to read it out loud. It's sort of, you can get what the meaning is, and it's all very wonderfully done, but it's not a way we talk or write today. And to me, it's kind of a bridge between Shakespeare, which we studied it, I'm sorry, I don't ever really truly grasp it, and say Jane Austen, which is a language that generally we're more comfortable with. And Johnson and his time, I think, was sort of a bridge at that time. So I thought I would start with, having left, of course, my note at home, because this is by the library, we're sponsored with the library here. I'll just read a library thing. Here we go. She said, okay. This is from one of his series of essays, The Adventurer, right? An opinion, so it would have been a 4 or 5 page essay out weekly. An opinion has of late been, I know not how, propagated among us that libraries are filled only with useless lumber, that men of parts stand in need of no assistance, and that to spend life in poring upon books is only to imbibe prejudices, to obstruct and embarrass the powers of nature, to cultivate memory at the expense of judgment, and to bury reason under a chaos of undigested learning. Such as, oh, by the way, a man of parts in that way, at that time it meant an intellectual, smart person, right? A person with parts. Such is the talk of many who think themselves wise, and of some who are thought wise by others, of whom part probably believe their own tenets, and part may be justly suspected of endeavoring to shelter their ignorance in multitudes, and of wishing to destroy that reputation which they have no hopes to share. It will, I believe, be found invariably true that learning was never decried by any learned man, and what credit can be given to those who venture to condemn that which they do not know. So I don't know in listening to it whether whether it can be followed directly. I don't know. You just have to put up with it. You're here tonight. That's it. But again, you can see why reading it over and then reading it out loud, and you can sort of pull it apart. Okay, and then he says what a person should be, that the greatest part of all mankind must owe all their knowledge, and all must owe far the larger part of it to the information of others. So, we're still continuing about the value of that. To understand the works of celebrated authors, to comprehend their systems, and retain their reasonings is a risk more than equal to common intellects. And he is by no means to be accounted useless or idle, who stored his mind with acquired knowledge and can detail it occasionally to others who have less leisure or weaker abilities. So you ought to be able to, and he says you ought to be able to read, you ought to be able to converse, and then writing. He says some caution, he's talking about that writing, that you collect all your knowledge and then you should be able to communicate it. Caution, therefore, must be used lest copiousness and facility be made less valuable by inaccuracy and confusion. To fix the thoughts by writing and subject them to frequent examinations and reviews is the best method of enabling the mind to detect its own sophisms and keep it on guard against the fallacies which it practices on others. In conversation, we naturally diffuse our thoughts, and in writing, we contract them. Method is the excellence of writing, and unconstraint, the grace of conversation. So you can say whatever in conversation, but it's and if you've done any kind of writing, you know that's true, right? And that's why so many people can't write, because they can't think or talk, but that's unfortunately my feeling, however, about that. So that's then we'll go to the dictionary itself. It was a killer. He has a very long introduction, very, very long, because that also is what you did. And you would maybe thank a patron or whatever, but he had this long introduction to say why he had done it. And he had done it to sort of fix the English language. There was the thinking at the time that you could do that and you should do that, so you wouldn't have, in effect, all these slangs, all these, but that you would fix it. Over time, he also realized that it was a constantly changing thing, but to have some kind of rules. And he says that the chief glory of every people arises from its authors. And whether I shall add anything by my own writings to the reputation of English literature must be left to time. Much of my life has been lost under the pressure of disease, much has been trifled away, and much has always been spent in provision for the day that is passing over me. In other words, he was a freelance writer just trying to make a day-to-day. The day that's passing over me. But I shall not think my employment useless or ignoble if by my assistance foreign nations and distant ages gain access to the propagators of knowledge and understand the teachers of truth. And then, again, he's had in many ways a very, very sad life, a very difficult life. He and his wife were never really close. He was a very religious man, so he couldn't go out and, meet other women or do anything like that. He was very, very lonely, and he would stay up till 3 in the morning so that he would have friends at the coffee houses or if they visit or whatever. So I just want to read the end of this. It's one of his